Welcome, Internet, to the PixelPlay podcast, your weekly podcast where we discuss all the news, rumors, and discussions from this week in gaming. I am one of your co-hosts, Kaylan, aka Ktastrophy, joined as always by my co-host, Adam, CSRadical. In this week's episode, we're going to be talking about all the information we got about GTA 6 and it being supposedly woke with a new female protagonist, which the internet loves. We're going to be talking about the news that we got of Sony's reaction to Activision Blizzard and their thoughts about Call of Duty. We're also got an Untimely review for Lake by Adam here. All that and more in this week's episode. And if you like what you hear and you want to hear more of it, we post every week wherever you get your podcast, or you can see our lovely faces as we do it by searching for us on YouTube or on Spotify for PixelPlay Podcast. Adam, we got a pretty beefy episode, so let's get into it. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I survived the U.S.
Yes. How was the trip down to? You went to Pennsylvania, Chicago.
I went to Lansing, Michigan.
Nice, of course, the beacon of Lansing, Michigan. How was that?
It was great. I mean, most of it was just basically spent either in a hotel room watching dumb shit on TV or eating food. We didn't really do anything crazy because it's Lansing, Michigan. There's not like a massive amount of things to do. Even the minor league baseball stadium wasn't even playing that weekend. So I'm like, damn, not much else to do. But don't get me wrong. Good Lord, did I eat well?
Oh yeah? Like, what'd you have?
Well, probably the best wood fire pizza I've ever had. Easily the best pie I've ever had in my life. Really good sliders. Really good breakfast bagels. Like there's a lot of stuff pretty local that was just off the wall good, and making me kind of jelly that here in Canada, most of the times when you get stuff, if you can find local stuff, it's usually good, but it's hard to find because they're buried in about 10 Tim Hortons and 17 McDonald's and about 29 Subways on every block.
Oh yeah. Yep. How is going across the border? I know you said you were kind of no problems.
No, not a single problem. I mean, other than the U.S. side where the guy was being a little too I'm a cop, like kind of like grizzled, like old grump. I'm just like, bro, I'm just going to go see some friends in a hotel in Michigan. It's cool. I'm not gonna do anything.
Did he put on the latex glove?
No. Thankfully, my ass is still untouched. It's okay.
Okay, well, that's good. I'm glad they didn't catch you at the border, so it's good.
I did smuggle in some food though, so ass sucks to be you guys.
Did you bring like some Kinder eggs across the border?
I brought a whole goddamn banana cream pie from the place that was the best pie I've ever had. So yeah, I smuggled some shit.
Nice. We got ourselves a badass here, ladies and gentlemen. Smuggling things across the border, committing crimes. That brings us into our first topic of the week. Let's talk about GTA. Committing crimes is like smuggling pies across the border. It transitions well. Don't think about it too much because neither did I.
That was good. I don't care. That was awesome.
I worked at it. Well, it wasn't the way I was planning to go, but hey, whatever. I'm going to run with it.
I'll take it.
So, Adam, we got a whole bunch of details this week about GTA 6 and what to expect from it. This is coming from Bloomberg. So I'm not going to go through the whole document, but I'm going to highlight some of the things here. So first off, the biggest one is that for the first time ever, GTA is going to have a female protagonist, a Latina female, along with a counterpart. They figure it's going to be a sort of a Bonnie and Clyde kind of style game partnership there. They're also looking to move away from, making jokes or satirizing or punching down, as they put it, marginalized groups, as they did in previous games. And other details is it was about 2 years away from development. They originally wanted to have large areas that reflected both North and South America, and I think we talked about that at one point. Now the map is going to focus on the Miami area, but Rockstar plans to continually update the game by adding new missions and cities on a regular basis. This is as a way to avoid crunch for the developers. So, Adam, there was a bit of a heated reaction on the internet, if you can imagine that. People were not happy, or a vocal minority on the internet were unhappy about the idea of GTA getting, as they put, woke by not satirizing or making fun of marginalized communities and having a female protagonist. Is this a big deal? Is this going to change how GTA feels?
As someone who has gone through a journey of feeling like that to someone who realized how stupid that feeling is, no, it's not going to ruin GTA. Let's be completely honest. Is GTA anything aside from ridiculous over the top missions where you get in usually a really fast car, fly down, crash into about 17 different things, killing about 25 people along the way. And all you were really doing was just, after you stole a purse from somebody, you ran off, and that was the end of the mission. That's not going to change a goddamn thing. The difference now is literally just woman and potentially not making nearly as many jokes that are punching down. Instead, they might punch up a little bit more, which actually they've already done a lot already. It just means maybe more of that. But it seems like they're going to avoid, going for the cheap, like, imitation humor and just kind of taking shots at, like, you can go out there and say immigrants in a nutshell, but poor people is another big one. It's just, hey, let's not be douchebags to the people that, can't protect themselves. Let's just punch up to, like, what we usually do, which is cops, politicians, gang, like, criminals, like, actual stuff like that. And not just, every person under the sun that has, like, $50 to their name.
Yeah, I was of the same mind. Like, I know some people were kind of like, "Oh man, this is gonna ruin like GTA," or like GTA is all about like making fun of everything. And you know what? I kind of disagree with that. I think GTA, for certainly, I'm not trying to excuse or minimize it. Like, they definitely did make their jokes about gender. They made sex. They made jokes about sexual innuendo jokes and all that kind of stuff. And like, I think the biggest idea that they did is like they would reinforce some stereotypes with those kind of things, but that's not, in my opinion, or what I think of when I think of GTA. Like, I always think of them doing the more satirical stuff, which is poking fun at American culture in general, right? Like, if you think about, they would make comment, or they'd make satirical comments about government, politicians, the cops, like those
GTA 5 had a big one that was making fun of Facebook, basically.
Yeah, Facebook. I mean, they had a thing making fun of the FBI with the FIB, and like, I feel like it, one, works better when it does go after those in positions of power and authority and stuff, like those kind of groups, as opposed to making the low hanging fruit joke of like making a dick joke or making a like racist joke or something like that. It just, when I think about the GTA 5 story, like story and campaign, not a lot stands out in terms of the punching down jokes. It's more about the satirical comments of the US culture in general. And that typically encompasses more than just a small marginalized group. It, kind of shines a mirror on society as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that they say Rockstar is going woke when, if you really dig into the history of Grand Theft Auto games, Rockstar's been woke for a long time. Like, if that's what, if a woman and not making nearly as many racial jokes is the bar, they've crossed that line long before GTA 6 has come out. I mean, you had a powerful woman in GTA 3. You had minorities running the show in both San Andreas and GTA 4. You've had all of these things that they complain about being woke. That's already been there, and we know what it is. Because again, as someone who used to fall into that camp, it's just you getting triggered by certain buzzwords, and that just gets your attention. It's not thinking too deep about it, and it's just assuming the position that, because something is changing slightly, it must be going in a certain direction designed to make more money. In which case, yeah, but it's not being woke. It's just knowing what your audience is and what collectively makes you more money. It's not going woke.
Yeah, I think that's another thing that we kind of have to put into perspective, is that the last game that came out was like 10 years ago, and things have changed in terms of cultural acceptance and what we're willing to tolerate and stuff. And I don't think there would be as positive of a reception, or there would be a lot of critics and a lot of people who would get turned away from that kind of humor, because even if they aren't part of the woke kind of culture, or whoever these people are concerned about, like, generally our opinions have changed to a certain extent that I don't think most people would, one, find the humor in it, and two, really appreciate it. So like, there's no incentive. Like, they're a company looking to make money, and like, I don't think that the money is in making these kind of little jokes. And as for a woman being a lead character, I think that's totally fine. Like, we've had female characters in games for a while, and there's tons of examples of female criminal elements, and I think that's a really neat idea of how to do it. And I think there's a lot you could do that'd be really interesting from a female perspective in a crime game like GTA.
And in all honesty, it's not going to change much anyway. Like people make it sound like because if a female is one of the main playable characters, like all of a sudden the story's going to be exponentially different. You're going to be grabbing guns, taking cars, shooting shit, beating shit, stealing shit. Like it's not the gameplay is not suddenly changing. It's not like you're going to have, a period simulator going on or anything. Like I don't know what they think's going to happen with the fact that the character now is tits,
You get 77 cents on the dollar for the crimes you commit.
Oh Jesus. So she's Canadian now? Is that what we're establishing?
No, I think there's actually a really neat element of having a female character in a GTA game. Especially when from a crime perspective, because you could have a lot of people kind of look down on having this, woman who feels like she has something to prove in what might or could be perceived as a, male dominated sort of environment, and having her kind of prove herself in that. And I think that adds a really interesting perspective into a GTA game. Otherwise, it's just another, hey, you're, criminal guy, 1, 2, 3 in another crime simulator. Like, how often can you do that?
Honestly, be better off if they just make the game like she's just there. Like, don't even call attention to the fact that she's female. Just she's a criminal lord. Like, it doesn't take much. And again, like, so many of the excuses they get used. Like, how many times have we seen things come out there where, people be like, well, why are they trying to put they're trying to ruin, women in different things because they're trying to make them too woke when there's already people like Ripley from the Alien series, and there's Lara Croft and all of them. But then when another game comes out with one, they go, aren't there enough? It's like, so you admit that there are good ones, but there's also, now there's too,
Now, I want to specify, I am not saying, put female characters or minorities or whatever into games for the sake of having them.
No, of course not.
For creative license. If you want your character to be a, if you want him to be, a guy, a girl, white, black, whatever, like, I want creative freedom. I don't want there to be that external pressure of, hey, we need to check boxes. But this doesn't sound like a thing where this is GTA feeling like they are forced to do it. It sounds like this is something that they want to do. And if that's the case, go for it. I am all for artistic freedom and creativity.
Yeah, no one's looking to tick box. Like, we're not here to advocate ticking boxes. I do not care what the race, what the gender, what the sexuality of any character is in any given game. If the story's good, if the gameplay's good, it will sell itself. I don't care what the character is. That being said, it's nice to see stuff like this, even though, as far as I'm concerned, it's not necessary for every game. But when it happens, and especially if GTA 6 ends up being a really well-told story with a really robust set of characters, then it's just an extra bonus. So, and it will speak for itself. We'll come back here when GTA 6 comes out in the next 25 years after at least 4 more re-releases of GTA 5, and we'll talk about how either they seamlessly had like one of the best female characters in gaming, or how they royally bungled it and just came off like they were checking boxes. Because we'll have that opinion regardless. Doesn't matter which part of the game comes. If it's bad, we will say that it's bad. If it's good, we'll say that it's good. And if it ends up feeling like it's just a box ticker, we'll say it's a box ticker. And if it ended up being a great game, despite, regardless of the fact of what the character was, we'll say it. Because more often than not, it's not really going to necessarily be the character that sells it. It will be the story surrounding it.
Exactly. What do you think of going back to Miami? Are you excited going back to Miami? What do you think? Do you think they're going to go with the old Miami Vice, or do you think they're going to do contemporary Miami?
It's probably, well, I mean, it'll be fine. It's going back to Vice City. I have a bit of a bias that I'm okay with that. At the same time, I still cannot help but want them to do something different other than the same 3 things they keep doing, which is New York, Miami, or basically like New York, Florida. I guess Miami, you could say. So New York, Florida, and LA. It's like, can we do something different? And no, I don't mean Chicago. That's just New York with a different coat of paint. Let's not kid ourselves.
Oh, man, we just lost all our Chicago audience right there.
You know what I meant. That's why I'm saying, having something like, as we mentioned before, like the Mexico side of things, or even
like a border town,
or even again, an England, going to there, or even just a little bit different, where it's mostly just Colorado, you're getting a much different atmosphere, and you can still have a cityscape, but it's not necessarily in the same beach town, Big Apple, just pure city by the river, by the it always seems like it has to be something that's surrounded by an ocean.
Yeah, I'd say I've always thought that doing a Russia in the 90s Grand Theft Auto would have been neat.
Well, yeah, but we don't want to do anything with Russia right now.
Yeah, they're kind of blacklisted right now, but I don't know. For me, like I think there's a lot of neat ways of um doing Miami. Like you could kind of just lean into the 2020 and just go out full Florida man kind of experience with
Yeah, but then you don't
GTA.
do Miami. You got to do like some random ass like rural county in Florida.
Who's to say they won't?
I mean, that's true. It's not couldn't. It might not just be Miami. It might not be like Vice City
Right?
where it's
You
just
could
the
literally
city.
play as Florida man in GTA and just start doing some random like stuff.
All right. Well, now we're
Well,
really
get some bath salts and just go nuts.
now we're really well. Yeah, but that already exists. Trevor was in the last game.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, that's fair.
We
Was
already
he on bath salts?
we had a Florida man. He was just living in California at that point.
Wrong time, wrong place.
Right.
Yeah, but I think like there's also a lot of stuff like if you did like we went back to the days and did like the drug running and like the cartel stuff like that would be neat to do. But we'll see. It'll be interesting to see what you do there. Do you think that we're gonna get a standalone game? Like, is there gonna be a single player, or are you thinking they're gonna lean more heavily into a online experience like a GTA Online?
They know what their customer base is. They can do both. They have the money to do both. They know that the campaign sells initially, and then the online will sell itself with the most minimal amount of work these days. So, I would imagine we'll see something similar to 5, where it'll be both.
Yeah, because they do mention that like their idea is to have eventually add more maps and more cities and more missions. So I don't think we're gonna see like that we did in GTA 4, where it's tons of standalone DLC.
Well, I mean,
I
they've
think it's
got
gonna be
no
more and more.
excuse to not do both. They made so much goddamn money from the online that they can more than pay their fair share to get the single player done.
Mhm.
In fact, it almost even
Yeah,
makes like it would be more sensible just to have separate.
separate SKUs.
Yeah, like just have like the single player campaign on its own SKU and then put the online. Well, I guess the reason is then you wouldn't play the single player side. So
Or vice versa, you wouldn't have people who buy the single player and then say, "Oh, I'm going to check out the online," and then get hooked.
yeah, there's always the flip side to that. So
Mhm. Yeah, I really hope that they stay with the single player campaign because I really that's the aspect I love of GTA and just going hog wild. I mean, the online kind of makes sense. Like that's what we all used to do as kids was just go cause mayhem in the city. And now they've just monetized it and made it into an actual game that we can all play. So yeah. Anyways, yeah, they're saying about another 2 years away before we see GTA 6. So
or at least any mention of it probably at this point.
I think we'll see it before then.
Well, we'll
Anyways,
see.
keep that on our radar. The the other big news that we saw this week come out was Europe had a interview. The European Commission and the FTC, they kind of deal with a lot of stuff with like regulators and stuff. And they did a review with some of the competition for the Activision Blizzard acquisition. So this is coming from Reset Era. And what they did is they asked a bunch of questions to a bunch of developers. So they talked to Sony, they talked to Warner Brothers, Ubisoft, Nuvum, which is a digital game store for PC, Mac, and Linux in Latin America, Bandai Namco, Apple, Riot Games, Amazon, Google, Meta, a whole bunch of them. The one that I think we're gonna focus on more is Sony. I think there's a lot that came out of Sony. So I'll give you the questions that they asked, and then I'll give you what Sony's answer was. So does your company agree that physical distribution and digital distribution of games should be treated as separate markets, or would physical and digital distribution compete with each other in the same market? Should the digital video game distribution market be segmented by hardware platform type, PC, console, mobile device, or could it be considered as a single market without segmentation? If you consider that the game distribution market should be segmented into more restricted markets, or that it should encompass a broader set of products or services, present an alternative definition and justify your answer. In your company's view, subscription game services such as Xbox Game Pass should only be understood as part of a broader market for digital game distribution, or they could constitute a more restricted specific market for a competitive perspective. From the consumer's perspective, are subscription services perceived as direct competitors of individual purchase games in the buy-to-play model? And are there relevant barriers to entry for a company in the electronic gaming distribution market for the console, PC, and mobile markets? In the last 5 years, there has been any relevant entry into the distribution market of digital gaming? And they go on here a couple ones, but I thought we could just kind of jump in and talk about some of the highlights that Sony said. So, with regard to talking about online subscriptions, talking about Activision Blizzard and the importance of Call of Duty and whether it goes single player or, sorry, whether it goes console exclusive or remains multi platform, this is what they wrote. So, they say that apart from Activision, there are few developers and publishers capable of producing AAA games, such as EA with FIFA, Take-Two and Rockstar with Grand Theft Auto, and Epic Games with Fortnite. These games tend to be long-running franchises with big budgets, multi-year development cycles, and very supportive followers. Despite all of that, Sony believes that none of these developers could create a franchise to rival Activision's Call of Duty, which stands out as a gaming category on its own. That's why they believe that Call of Duty is so important that it influences users' choice of console. In fact, their network of loyal users is so ingrained that even a competitor that had the budget to develop a similar product, it would not be able to create a rival. They go on to say that Call of Duty, they give some facts and some numbers and stuff, and how they talk about the time, money, and number of employees, and followers, sales, and other data points related to Call of Duty to show how its unique franchise cannot be replaced. And then they also give some information that Call of Duty represents an important revenue stream for PlayStation. They provided the data, but it's redacted. And that it's one of SIE's biggest sources of revenue from third parties. So I want to touch here first before we get into some of the other things that came out of this conversation. Do you think that Call of Duty is an unparalleled franchise in the way that Sony's describing it?
Not as much as I would not say nearly to the extent that it used to be. It's definitely now getting on shakier ground. I think with them putting Warzone into the fray, that it suddenly made Call of Duty games not nearly as prolific anymore. I think also just like very much like a lot of other series out there, like Assassin's Creed is suffering from this problem right now. Guitar Hero basically fizzled out because of this problem. There's too many of them, and they come out too fast. Eventually, it's died out. And with Warzone also taking a lot of the players away, it's made it even more obvious that a Call of Duty every year is not working anymore. You know, I think there was even something that was showing that they were what was the specific article that we had this week?
50 million subscribers lost in the last 3 months, and overall down since 2021 of June 2021.
Yeah, so they've been rapidly losing people. So if this
now, granted, they're still at like 100 million players,
but it's a
still
lot less than what
dead.
It was. No one's saying they're dying, but they're starting to fall into a similar scenario that what World of Warcraft was, where everybody thought for the longest time no one could possibly touch them, and then it just started falling off. And it's not to say that there's anything obvious right now that could take that competition away, but if there's an open door right now, it's starting to show itself. And if somebody was willing to really take a crack at it, I mean, Destiny, if they really want to make a push, they could try to do something. If Sony on their own wanted to say, okay, well, you know, if they want to complain as much as they are right now about this acquisition, and they decide they really want to try their hand at making a really good military first person shooter, they can take their crack at it, and who knows, maybe it turns some eyes. I don't think that Call of Duty is what it was, say, around the Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops 2, like that era where literally when you saw the trailer for Call of Duty, you knew that was going to be the big game that year. Now, granted, they still are mostly the big games each year, but they're not just shattering numbers the way that they used to.
Yeah. So I think I somewhat agree with you. I think that like Call of Duty is still a huge franchise. I don't think that necessarily someone can replace Call of Duty. Like, I don't even know if you need to. Like, we talk about, you know, someone else making a first-person modern military shooter. I don't even know if it has to be that. Like, Fortnite is gaining a lot of traction lately. Like, that's definitely getting like kids in there. Does it compare with Call of Duty? No, but I think one of the things is that I don't think Microsoft would make it a standalone console exclusive, because then you're losing half of its player base. That's not to say that the player base is going to jump to Xbox. They may just see that as their exit ramp and to move on to something else. And so I don't know if Call of Duty is unparalleled in the sense that no one can replace it. I mean, it's still huge, and it's certainly like doing better than its counterparts like Battlefield, but how long does that stay at the top throne before people start getting tired? Like, you're right, Call of Duty doesn't get the everything stops when they announce a game. Like there's so much content and there's so many uploads and downloads that you have to do now in terms of DLC packs for Warzone. Like I hear people who talk about Call of Duty taking up half of the storage on their PlayStations just to run Warzone. And so like it does demand a lot of its players, and I don't know necessarily if a lot of people are committed to that. And I think a lot of people are starting to look at alternatives, and you are starting to see things grow in the market. Like I know there's a whole lot more parents who know what Fortnite is. I know there's a lot more parents who know what Minecraft is, and like as much as like they're not us in terms of gamers, like a lot of if you think about who has the time to commit to these games and play them, it's younger people, and that's where they're going. There, I don't think they're clamoring for Call of Duty like they used to.
No, and like you said, the whole thing of there not being like competition to Call of Duty is kind of a joke. There's always competition. It's just if you're looking for a 1A, 1B like Coke is to Pepsi.
Mhm.
Is there?
Yeah.
No. But there are plenty of other things that are taking some of what could be Call of Duty gamers. There's obviously Battlefield. You have things like Counter-Strike, Global Offensive. Like there are things out there that are taking some eyes away. The fact that people think that like there's no competition to COD is really hilarious. They do have plenty of competition. It's just not what they think of in the same length of like, Tomb Raider and Uncharted are like competition to each other. They look down the aisle and they see Call of Duty with its 100+ million, and then they look at anything else and go, well, that's not the same.
Mhm.
And that's it.
Yeah, like I don't doubt that Call of Duty has huge sales revenues for Sony. Like I think it would be devastating for them to lose it, but I think Call of Duty and Activision Blizzard and to an extent Microsoft need Call of Duty on PlayStation as much as PlayStation does. It's a beneficial agreement for both of them, and I don't think it would do well for Microsoft to cut it. I mean, it's the same reason why you saw probably Activision never fully go console exclusive with Sony when they were doing the partnerships and the promotions. It was always just, hey, get this first, get this, benefit on going one console or the other. Microsoft could certainly do that, but they would not say goodbye to a good chunk of their player base by just saying you need to buy an Xbox now.
Yeah, I mean, there are certain games that you can be okay with it. I'm sure they're going to be okay with Starfield being specifically on Xbox. Call of Duty is such a multifaceted game with such a massive number of people playing that it would be so foolish business-wise to not tap into that.
Well, not only that, but it's the kind of game like with an ecosystem, you are trying to maintain an ecosystem, and when that ecosystem starts to drop, when you start losing players because you are going console exclusive, that then raises the problem of, well, there's now fewer players on that game, and that doesn't bode well for the system. It doesn't bode well for the ecosystem, and then you start seeing them go to other things with it, which then push it. Now, granted, PlayStation does not have an alternative to Call of Duty that if they were to lose that, they would say, okay, well, we're just going to lean into this one instead. Like they don't have a kill zone, they don't have a resistance. Like thing that they had, I think the last one they had was mag, and that's dead too. So like they don't have an equivalent, so they need it too. I think it's just one of those. I don't think we'll see Call of Duty go its own separate way, but I don't know if it's this linchpin of gaming that we absolutely need to have, and that is unparalleled and unrivaled.
Well, I mean, considering that neither of us have probably played a Call of Duty game for a little while, I don't think it's clearly that important anymore, but it also just may be that we're not the market anymore for it.
No, no. I've never. Yeah, it's been a while since I played a Call of Duty game.
I mean, when they finally put them all on Game Pass, I'll play the campaigns, but don't expect me to get on the multiplayer anymore.
Mhm.
Because the campaigns can be like a fun 6 to 8 hour just romp. Like those can be enjoyable, but like yeah, I can't imagine myself spending hours playing multiplayer the way that I used to when I was still in like college, or it isn't the same anymore.
So speaking of playing these on Game Pass when they come out, one of the things that the questions did tackle was about game subscriptions, and they were talking about Game Pass and those sort of services. So Sony agrees that subscription services do compete with game purchases for a one-time fee. So, going that physical, buying the game outright versus the services. Sony does agree that subscription services compete with single purchase games, but they think that the lowest cost front of subscription services could be anti-competitive in relation to publishers who recoup the significant investments in games by selling them for an upfront fee. They also think that this could harm consumers by reducing the quality of games. Do you agree with that assessment that these subscription services are anti-competitive and hurt publishers who typically rely on game sales? And do you think it's going to reduce the quality of games that we see with Game Pass and those sort of services?
As of this moment, I don't, and that's only because what I would have to know how much they're paying these companies. That's the problem with this whole thing. Like, to ask us to know what we think about it, tell me how much you paid, say, I don't know, like what got recently put on Game Pass? What was
Stray.
one of this? What's that?
I was going to say that Stray game from for the PS5.
No. I'm talking Game Pass because either way. But I mean, if that's the example,
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Ninja Turtles game.
Yeah, let's like, how much did they pay that company for it? Like that's the problem is I don't know what that means, right? Like they can say, well, it's ruining it because maybe by throwing an upfront fee at a publisher, it's going to ruin their potential sales they could have if they sold the game on its own. How are we supposed to know that though? Do they know something I don't? Like, do they know that they're only paying like $10,000 for something? How the hell am I supposed to know? Like, most of them too, we're talking about Bethesda games. We're talking about now Activision Blizzard games. Microsoft owns the fucking company. Who cares? It's their money now. It doesn't matter. Now, if you're talking about outside companies, I mean, you can also just make the case that that's their goddamn choice to do it or not. It depends on what the money value is. If the money that Microsoft or Sony in the same retrospect goes, hey, we're going to give you this much and we're going to put your game on our subscription service for X amount of time, and they look at that number and they think that's worth it to them, then the transaction's done. I don't see how it's anti-competitive because you're the company that makes the choice. You don't have to go onto Game Pass. You don't have to be on PlayStation Plus Extra. If you think that you can sell your game perfectly well enough, you can be like Elden Ring and sell 10 plus million copies, and you ain't on any subscription service right now. You're doing just fine. If you're confident enough in your game, it can work. And if you're an indie developer, it's also the other side of it where you put it on Game Pass. You probably weren't going to get that many copies sold anyway on Steam or anywhere because it's going to get lost in the store. Now all of a sudden, you're in this like small number of games that get popped up in like a couple of weeks on Game Pass or even that month. And now people are like, oh, here's a couple of new things. What's this one? Compared to being lost in like the page of like 300 games on Steam that got released that week. I honestly don't understand the anti-competitive thing, but that's also because, like I just said, I don't know what the numbers are.
Yeah, I don't know if it's anti-competitive in the sense of publishers recouping. I think it raises a question for them of whether or not they want to be. It helps make them less risk averse, right? In the sense that I could take a payout now rather than waiting for the money, like waiting to see how much my game sells for. But I think that then kind of limits or hinders how much money they get for future projects and stuff. And it's maybe stifles a little bit of like, cream of the crop rising to the top kind of aspect. I do think I've been a proponent that I'm concerned that the idea of games just going on to services will reduce quality in the sense that there's no way, like you're not as competitive in terms of like trying to distinguish your game, make it the best you can, because you're going to go on Game Pass and you're getting that payout at the front, not at the back. Could I be wrong? Absolutely, but I look at it from a Netflix perspective, and the amount of crap that Netflix shovels out versus the amount of quality that comes out compared to what it did when it was first competing, that's what concerns me. Do I think it's affecting games now? No. But if this becomes the norm and everything's just about streaming services, it's going to become about who has the most quantity on their system, on their services, not who has the best quality. And that's something that we saw when PlayStation Plus went through its revision. It wasn't like, oh, what games are on there? It's how many games are on there. And that's a concern because then it just becomes about like quantity, and there's not a discussion about the quality of the games that are on there. And that's just my concern. We've talked about this, and I'm the old man on the podcast, and I don't even have that service yet, so it's hard for me to speak, but I just look at it from an outside perspective. It is interesting though, Sony making that statement, because as we know, they rarely, I mean, it's early to say, but they have yet to put or mention that they're going to put any of their big first party exclusives immediately onto that Game Pass. So at least from what it seems like, Sony's putting their money where their mouth is and saying, yeah, we don't think that it's good for game development, and they're not doing that. So.
Well, that was going to be my argument, because you were talking about the Netflix argument with all the bad movies, which, yeah, there's a lot of bad movies. Look at Prime. Anything that Prime does specifically in terms of movies are all relatively not that great. But then the argument I would make in response to that is, okay, but does that mean the entire industry is suddenly gotten worse? Like, are there just no good movies anymore? No, the answer is no. They're just coming from different places. Netflix might not be producing stuff. So you can make a case that maybe what Microsoft produces for a little while might not be as high quality as it used to be. But Sony is here on the other side, from what we know, producing the high quality stuff. So I don't think it's necessarily causing a dip in quality. It's just causing a dip in quality for one specific place. And that's their business choice, right? Whereas like Nintendo's clearly not having that issue. Sony's not had that issue. I mean, I guess Ubisoft's had that issue, but that's just Ubisoft, so that's their thing. But like,
it's hard to say if it's a chicken and the egg situation, because
no, like there's no way of proving if it's one or the other, right?
Yeah, I look at the streaming services, and that's not where I want games to go, because I mean, if you think about the good movies that we're seeing on these services, with the exception of like HBO Max, which has always kind of been there for quality, but like the good ones are just when they get the good movies that have been coming out in theaters. But typically those straight to like Netflix or whatever movies kind of have that feeling of the straight to VHS from like the early like or late like 90s.
Here's going to be my hot take. I actually think the opposite. If I really, really sit down and think about it, I think subscription services are actually better for quality. The reason for that is not because the quality of games are just getting better. No, it means that you're having access to games that you would never try, that are of high quality, that you would never consider. Some of the games that I've come across just from Game Pass and even extra already with the Artful Escape, games that I would never put money on, never would touch. And I try because it cost me nothing other than the money that I've already adopted to something else that I was already sitting there on. And now I get to try these games. I never would have played a game like Crosscode that I did a while back on this channel if it wasn't for Game Pass. And I got Game Pass specifically for other reasons, like Back 4 Blood and stuff. But that game happened to fall into my lap, and it ended up being one of the best games I've played in a long time. And I think that people are just looking at the AAA side of things, and that's the only thing they're going through their head. To which I'll say, as a reminder, AAA games are always a fucking coin flip. They are either really good, or they are just absolutely over-marketed garbage. It will never change. You need to just start getting used to that. And this is why the subscriptions to me are actually working better, because it's allowing you to look at other options when the rest of the stuff is absolute dumpster fire trash.
Fair enough. I can see that argument, but I'm of a different camp, and I've kind of said why that piece is. The other thing that it was interesting is that Sony said that they believe it would take several years for a competitor, even with substantial investment, to create a rival effective for Game Pass. So it's interesting that Sony even kind of admits to themselves that, like, hey, it's hard to compete with Game Pass, and I wonder if they sort of see that their PlayStation Plus, whatever we're going to call it, doesn't compete with it.
But that's not because there isn't an effective rival. It's because Microsoft is one of the richest companies in the fucking world. If Google actually tried with Stadia, they could have been an effective rival, but they didn't try. Like, it's... and I have to do this because I'm a goddamn wrestling fan, but there's a reason so many companies over the last, 20 years since WCW has been gone have failed, because it's not even the investment. Well, actually, yeah, you know what? That was my point. It is the investment amount, because they don't have the kind of money. Sure, in TNA or Impact had pretty decent shots at it, but they didn't have nearly the financial backing. AEW now comes out with a billionaire owner who has the passion there, and now they have an effective rival. It's just the simple thing that Sony doesn't have the money. And everybody seems to act like it has to be a rival. We said it so many times on this fucking show. They can't rival Game Pass because Microsoft has a few extra $1 billion in the bank that are just sitting there burning a hole in their pockets. And they can just go, let's buy another big company.
For the listeners, he literally just reached in his pocket and just threw his hands like he was throwing money around.
Just take that clip of, what's her name from Kill la Kill, just throwing pockets of money at people. Yeah. It's the simple thing. Of course, it's hard to create a rival for Game Pass. How many companies have the same kind of capital that Microsoft has?
Mhm.
Like, it's that simple. You got to go to the Googles and Facebooks of the world to do that stuff. You got to tap Elon Musk on the shoulder and be like, "Hey, you want to make a gaming streaming service? Go to Jeff Bezos and see what he's doing. I'm sure he's got some money he's got laying around for that shit." But like, I think we said it before. Microsoft has like 4 times the overall capital that Sony has, or even bigger than that. I can't remember the actual numbers anymore. All I know is the one had $1 trillion next to it and the other had $1 billion next to it. That's all I needed to know, that there was a bit of a difference. And it wasn't like 900 billion versus 1 trillion. It was a little more than that. So
Yeah.
Sony is being a little facetious here because they're acting like it's impossible when they damn well know that it's not that. They just can't do it because they don't have that money to do it.
Well, I mean, their argument probably is that there's no one in the in the
In the
I don't know,
current
the
gaming
realm.
industry, yes, but
In the-
that's
in the
because
industry,
no
yeah,
one
yeah.
else has that capital. If somebody else of a company, like I said, Facebook, Google, Amazon, if they wanted to, they could. Gaming, like Amazon Gaming with their free stuff every month, there's a couple of interesting things in there. If they really wanted to, they could just throw a few $1,000,000 left and right, and all of a sudden, oh, look at that. There's a really popular game on Amazon for free this month. Huh, how about that? If they really wanted to, they could do it and it would cost them nothing. Sony, on the other hand, has to be a little more careful because they aren't just a gaming company. Neither is Microsoft, but Microsoft has enough money to basically already rival Sony's gaming company with just the money that they're using for their gaming industry.
Yeah. So it's interesting. It's interesting to kind of get an inside view of how Sony is viewing this whole situation.
Yeah, I mean, I get a lot of it, but it also, I can't help but, as someone who really doesn't care about what rich people think, just making it seem like it sounds like a lot of internal bitching, you know?
Hmm. You've got for us an untimely review for a game. Ladies and gentlemen, as you know, we are not big enough, influential enough, or rich enough to play games ahead of time or through embargoes. So we play games on our own dime and on our own time, and we bring you reviews untimely when we can, as we can, when we finish them. This week, Adam, you have a review for Lake, correct?
I do.
Yeah, what do you got for us?
So, unfortunately, this game isn't actually a full review. I managed to, what I think is around like 80% of the game, and the problem is that for some reason, there's a bug on my version of the game. I've looked it up. It doesn't seem to be that widespread, but there's a bug where, for whatever reason, the cutscene that I'm doing that's integral, like it's not like one that I can skip, because they don't have like a pause and skip button on cutscenes for some reason. But there is a cutscene in there that I cannot skip. So whenever it ends, it's just in a constant loading loop. For whatever reason, it doesn't translate to the next thing. So I had to give up, no matter how many things I tried. But I have watched the endings, so I know at the very least, like what happens, right? So I can at least give you that part of it. So Lake is another like, speaking of Game Pass random mini titles that I never would have tried, there's one right here. Lake is essentially a very boring game, and I say that in the nicest way possible. Like, it's a very boring game, but that's the selling feature of it. It's literally a game about you leaving your... Okay, the story is also ridiculous. You're leaving your job in the city to go help your dad, who's on vacation out at his job as a postal office like service delivery person. Which I'm like, they can't just find a temp worker. You're going across the country to go deliver mail for 2 weeks for your dad? All right. Okay. But it's literally just that. You have a route. You go deliver stuff. There's a little bit of story in there, kind of like akin to what, a Life is Strange kind of game would be. Not with the supernatural stuff, just in terms of, you meet people. You can make a few decisions that determine things. There are 2 romance options if you're into that stuff too. But realistically, all the game is you get up, you get to listen to the radio, you get to drive around in a very quaint, quiet, small town, deliver some mail, deal with a crazy cat lady, maybe talk to some lumberjack who's, hanging up on a tree, cutting one down with a chainsaw, meet a couple of quirky people, talk to them, make some friends, and that's the game. And honestly, like a lot of games that I've said on the show, like a coffee talk, it works really well in that it's just chill. It doesn't demand that much out of you. It's just something that you can play as like, your downtime game, just something to kind of throw a little bit of off into. You know, you've been playing a little bit too much of something like extra serious, and you need something to kind of unwind and just kind of relax to. That's this game in a nutshell. Because for I want to say like about 4 or 5 or 6 hours that I spent into it, like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it was some encapsulating game that thrilled me with some like really in-depth storytelling or really good gameplay. The gameplay is actually pretty bad. The driving mechanics are not that great. But again, that's not the whole point of the game. It really is just like, it's like Serenity, really. It's all it is. It's Serenity and Tranquility, the video game. And you happen to get like the odd little bit of quirk once in a blue moon, and that's about it.
Cool. So overall, like, is this something you'd recommend? Where do you put it on the scale?
Well, it's hard to say when the bugs were what they were. And again, like, this is definitely a game that was not, made by, a massive studio with a lot of money on their hands. So, you got to be a little bit more fair with it. I'd say honestly for what it did, I'd give it like 3, 4, like in that range. Like, it's perfectly fine at what it does. It's just not, there's nothing here that's going to blow you away. You're not going to leave this with like some incredible feeling of like, life-changing, you learn something. You literally deliver packages and talk to people. That's the game. There's nothing special about it. It's just something else to do when you need something to kind of get away from whatever stuff that you've been doing for a while, and you just need something chill. Like, honestly, it's a game that if you really even wanted to, just throw on your own music and just kind of mess around, right? Like,
or throw on this podcast while you play.
There you go. That's how you sell the show.
Always be promoting, buddy.
PixelPlay Podcast. Put that on when you're playing Lake.
Yeah, there you go. The official podcast list tool playing Lake. Awesome. Cool. Is it like, what would be the deciding factor if someone was like, oh, I don't know, like what would be like some things that they might want to like that you would say to someone who's considering like what kind of things would drive them for this or against them?
Do you want to calm the fuck down? Go play this game. Are you like the kind of person that's looking for, like, especially if you live in the city, are you looking for something that just kind of puts you in a place that's completely opposite to that? This does that. In the same vein of like how I really took to Life is Strange True Colors because I loved the setting there and it made me want to live in that area for a little while. That's kind of what this game did too. Just being able to live in like this really quaint small town with this just beautiful lake and mountain like range you can see here. And like all you got is really like a quirky little diner, this little video rental store, because it's also set in like I think like the late 80s, so it's like VHS era still.
Nice.
So there's stuff like that, but it's really like living in like a small cottage town in like the 80s, and it's just a nice different change of pace. I honestly can't sell this game to you guys like, again, like it's going to be something that you're going to sit here and be like, holy shit, this is amazing. This is literally the game that you put on when you are just kind of bored, there's nothing else going on, and you just kind of want to just turn your brain off. Like, this works perfectly for that purpose.
Awesome. Glad to hear it. All right. Adam, let's wrap up the show, as always, with our little game that we play, Trophy Stumpers. If you're new and this is your first time listening, I give Adam 10 trophies or achievements, and he has to guess the game, getting 2 guesses. See how quickly you can get it, and see if you can beat Adam and get it before he does. Adam, are you ready?
No, this losing streak is continuing by the way this has been going, because you started throwing really big curveballs at me.
We'll see if this one gets it. Trophy number 1, outnumbered,
okay.
No problem.
Okay.
Number 2, knee deep in the dead.
Knee deep in the dead.
Yeah. Number 3, up close and personal.
Okay.
Number 4, every nook and cranny.
Okay.
Number 5, Argent Overload. Argent Overload.
That one suddenly threw me off because I had a guess ready.
What were you thinking? I'm not gonna.
Well, no, because I don't want to say.
What are you? I'm not gonna take it as your guess. Like, just tell the audience where you're going.
Well, I was just thinking like any zombie shooter, right? Like that's all I was really gonna do. So
okay.
I mean, I was kind of thinking like similar, like again, like a Back 4 Blood kind of deal. So
fair enough. So once again, the first 5 trophies: outnumbered, no problem; knee deep in the dead; up close and personal; every nook and cranny; Argent Overload.
I might take I might take the nook and cranny a little more seriously, but we'll continue with these trophies.
Okay. Number 6, Butcher.
Okay, give me one more. I think I have a guess now.
Number 7, Historian.
Never mind. That didn't help anything.
What were you thinking? Brainstorm with the audience.
How many more trophies do we got left?
You have 3 more.
Okay, give me one more, and if I'll go with the guess that I'm thinking of right now.
No Rest for the Living.
Okay, I'm gonna guess with the reboot of Doom.
Are you talking like Doom 2016?
Yeah, 2016.
It is Doom 2016.
Okay.
Well done, sir. Well done.
The Nook and Cranny suddenly got me thinking. I'm like, this sounds like something about like you really digging into the guts of something.
So the Nook and Cranny is actually just, I don't know if you remember, but you're going around, you're collecting like the little pop minifigures of all the Doom guys.
Oh, well, I didn't play a lot of Doom, so I didn't get too deep into that.
Let me pull it up for you here. Nook and Cranny, find all the collectibles. And yeah, you're looking for like these little Doom guy minifigures.
Oh, well, that's interesting. The Argent one was made me think, okay, so this isn't like some standard like zombie shooter. I'm figuring like the trophies are clearly leaning in. This is something about shooting the dead. So it's just a matter of, okay, what that is. And then you started naming trophies that made me think, okay, it's a little less real life zombie sort of scenario. This is probably a little more crazier. So that and that's where Doom is coming in.
Yeah. So I can't remember if I gave the last 3, but the last 3 were No Rest for the Living. The Circle is Complete and Rip and Tear.
Yeah, well, Rip and Tear would have done it right there.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, unless somehow it was Doom Eternal, and then you had to kind of just mess me up a little bit by switching it, and I just had to use 2 guesses on it. But hey.
Yeah. No, well done, sir. We're back on the winning side.
Well, it's good to feel like I'm at least capable of doing these things again. It's also a shame. Like, I actually played through Doom for a couple of hours, and I was thinking so bad, like, this is going to be so good to see this again. And the more and more I played it, the more that I went, I think I'm not into these kind of games anymore. Because for whatever reason, like, it was fun, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it was like, you know, the absolute stinking shits. No, it was just, it wasn't hitting the same way that I think it must have as a kid. Maybe it's just, you know, that maybe I got a little less ADHD kind of gaming for things anymore, where I need like the really fast and heavy stuff.
See, I found for me, I played Doom 2016, and I found the first few levels were kind of slow and off-putting, but it's when you get past that, there's a certain point where it just clicks, and then it becomes one hell of a ride. Like, it is amazing.
Maybe it's that. Maybe it just is I kind of put it down too soon.
Yeah. Hey, you got Game Pass. Get back on there and give it a shot.
That is true. I mean, Doom Eternal also exists too. I could always just start with that one as well. It's not
don't do Doom Eternal.
Why not?
Of the two, I find that 2016 is better than Eternal. I find Eternal, the problem that they have is that it loses some of the flow. Like, they start going for some mobility in terms of climbing, and like there adds a platform element, and that slows it down. Not to mention they've got some characters and some enemies that pop in that kind of remove the flow in the I guess the flow of 2016. Like, 2016 had a flow. It had like a method. It had a melody in terms of how it did what it did. Whereas I found Eternal kind of hit the brakes, and there'd be like these roadblocks where it's like, okay, I'm no longer doing this dance with all these enemies. I am now just dealing with this one character who's a pain in the ass. It kills the vibe, it kills the flow, and I'm not a big fan of it.
Who knows? Maybe I'll really attach to that rhythm version of Doom, Metal Hellsinger, when that finally comes out. Maybe that'll be the way that it gets me to get into these kind of games again, because it requires a little bit more to methodicalism.
Yeah. I mean, I love 2016. I recommend that. Eternal, once again, not bad, but of the two, I find that Doom Eternal is the weaker of the two, and I would advise someone to do 2016 before they do Eternal.
It also reminds me that I really need to go back and play the new Wolfenstein games, because the one time I tried to play it on my computer and it couldn't handle it. So I haven't actually taken a good shot at the new Wolfensteins either, except for the last one, which I've heard is really, really bad. So I'm ignoring that one.
Are you talking like the Youngbloods or?
Yeah, the Youngblood, where it's the two sisters and all they want to do is go, "Hey, dude!"
Yeah. The Wolfenstein series is good too. A little less chaotic, a little less quick and melodical than Doom, but still fun. I think I actually platinumed that one. Did I?
Just more things to add to the list of games that I'm probably never getting to at the rate my backlog's going.
Exactly. All right, sir. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to submit your own list of trophies for Trophy Stumper, you can do that by emailing us at pixelplaypodcast@gmail.com, or you can reach us on any of our socials by finding us at PixelPlaycast. And we also have a Discord where you can join and talk to us too. All the information is in the link tree if you're watching the video, or it is in our description. Adam, thank you so much for joining us again. We will do this again next week. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much, and have yourself a great day. Bye for now.